Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 986, written by The Host 404. The elderly couple with superhuman powers. Once, my cousins and I were taking a trip on a bike path. I don't remember where, but we were riding our bikes to Corona, California. The bike path is a straight route with forests on one side and a river on another. About 30 minutes before making it to Corona, we saw an elderly couple walking slowly towards the same way we were biking. The elderly man was in a wheelchair with an orange flag attached to it, and the woman, which I'm assuming is his wife, was pushing him, and she had a large cloth grocery bag, so we sped past them. Upon arriving at our destination, we were shocked to see the same elderly couple walking towards the end of the bike path. How did they make it to the end so quickly? We don't know. There was no way someone could have picked them up in a car because cars can't go through the bike route. It's completely separate. We thought maybe it wasn't the same couple, but the orange flag, the woman's short, curly gray hair, and her large cloth grocery bag were identical. Case notes for file 986. The elderly couple with superhuman powers. So I wonder, from their perspective, did anything strange happen? Were they zapped forward in time? Or in this case, in space? There's a few reports this past week where people are just zapped back in time or in space, especially in the stories I've read personally, but not on the channel. It's returning to that thing I mentioned, that sometimes there are just patterns that I notice. I don't know if they're relevant. Again, it could just be seeing a face in the clouds, but it's very interesting. Seems the most likely explanation is they interacted with a space-time portal that just zipped them to the end of the path. But why so specific? Why to the end of the path and not in the water, the ocean, to another country, to, anywhere? It's almost like they're placed there by a developer of the game. Very peculiar. Case file number 987, written by OwlCarter, The Ghost Family. About 3 years ago, I worked at a pizzeria where I carried out varied tasks, depending on urgency. This evening, I was in charge of deliveries. A couple and their 2 children, who were regular customers, ordered by phone and came to pick up their order at the restaurant. Usually they opted for delivery, but this wasn't the first time they had come to pick it up. As they left, I walked past them. A few minutes later, we realized that they were missing an item. We tried calling them, but there was no answer. As they were loyal customers and I had a delivery nearby their address, I decided to drop off the missing item myself. However, when I arrived at their building, something seemed off. They lived on the ground floor of a small building, and their yard was usually filled with children's toys, but that day it was empty. I rang the intercom, and through the glass door of the building, I saw an elderly woman opening the door of the flat and coming to me. She told me that she had lived there for years and there was no family living there. Confused, I went back to my car and video called my colleague to make sure I wasn't going crazy. She became puzzled as I had just been and confirmed that I was at the correct address. This would have been surprising otherwise, as I had delivered to them several times before and was very familiar with the neighborhood. I tried calling the customers again, but still no answer. Eventually, I had to move on as I was running out of time. About 2 weeks later, they reordered as if nothing had happened. I made the delivery and everything seemed back to normal. It was the same address. Of course, I told them about the strange events. They were just as confused as I was and had no explanation, since they, of course, didn't move, and no elderly woman lived with them. Moreover, they were certain that they had gone straight home after picking up their order. Since these events, we have referred to them as the Ghost Family. Case notes for file 987. The Ghost Family. Well, I would have to agree with one commenter that I saw. It's all about the old lady. The family itself sounds very physical, corporeal. No issues there. Is it actually a ghost family? Maybe not. The old lady, though, maybe was a lost relative that died in that area, but it sounds like they were renters, so maybe not. Maybe it was just someone that had died in that area that didn't realize they were dead and answered the door as if to just greet a person that would come. Of course, to their perspective, no one else lives there. It sounds like a confused spirit. Not malicious, just confused. Also, just to say, I'm very impressed that you decided to go out of your way to try to bring these people, this family that forgot an item, their missing item. You know, not many people would do that. Again, I mentioned it before, but I think not enough people are taking pride in their work. It doesn't matter what you do. Do you clean offices or mop floors or flip burgers or deliver groceries or whatever it is you do? You should take pride in what you do. It's important. Not just for other people, but for yourself as well. It's a certain lack of hope, I think, that's especially prevalent over the past 3 years. Like a cloud of miasma that descended upon the world, and people haven't mentally recovered yet, it seems. I hope they do. We have to be more responsible and care for each other. Otherwise, what's the point? Bonus file. Written by 16 the Tower, the Zebraman. It all started when I was about 5. My parents never had a lot of money. At least a few times a year, power was turned off due to failure to pay bills. Since it was such a frequent occurrence, we always kept a big box of candles and tea lights to light the house in the evenings when we didn't have power. My parents had put me to bed and blown out most of the candles, with the exception of the ones in the room. I woke up at some point early in the night to go use the bathroom, which was directly across the hall from my room in the trailer. I paused in the dark hallway and looked to my left, through the living room and into my parents' room, and I see him, the Zebraman. He was roughly my dad's height, 6'1", and honestly his appearance haunts my dreams still. He had the completely nude torso of a human male, but the head, lower arms and legs, and hands and feet of a zebra. His face, though, was slightly different, particularly his eyes. His eyes were orange and marquee-shaped, and not set in the typical spot for an equine. Instead, they were centered at the front of his face. I was a child. I stared. I didn't know if he was real or not. Then he started sprinting, like a human, at me. I started screaming and bolted into the bathroom. I could hear his hooves clicking across our hardwood floor. They got close enough to the bathroom that I could feel the vibrations from his footsteps in the floor under my feet, and then they stopped. Seconds later, my parents were in the bathroom with me as I screamed and cried, terrified. My parents assumed I was sleepwalking. Then it happened again. A few months later, I saw the Zebraman again, and again I stared and he started running at me. Cue screaming and hiding, and my parents coming to comfort me again. As I got older, the Zebraman showed up every time we were lighting the house with candles. I learned quickly that as long as I had just glanced at him, he would be gone after I'd gone to the bathroom. The last time I saw him, I was 14. He chased me at that time, stopping just short of the bathroom door as he had many times before. After that, home felt a lot more peaceful at night, like something negative had finally disappeared from my life. Case notes: the Zebraman. So I just want to say that I know that lifestyle where you're poor growing up. I wasn't as poor as this, where there was no electricity and had to get light through candles, like living in the 1800s. But it wasn't, fancy dinners or anything like that. We moved constantly around. I don't know, I've moved probably 20 times before I was 18. It builds character. It makes you appreciate what's important. What more could you want from growing up? Love and character. And this really brings back vibes of Baphomet. Legends speak of it in many different forms. It's not just a biblical entity, but it's this idea, the concept of evil or trickery or inverting reality. The Zebraman is kind of describing that, in my opinion. Was it a demon? Was it an outward manifestation of your own inner turmoil? I couldn't really say for sure, but it's very creepy. The fact it wasn't able to enter the door that was closed, it was almost like a vampire story where it has to be invited in. There's a cosmic law, I guess you could say, regarding that. And then I also wonder, you say you felt inner peace, a peace of tranquility after this being left. Maybe it was because you found your inner peace that it left. And before that, it wasn't what was causing that turmoil, but you had to fight it off, face your demons, as it were, first. And this is Kinetic Symphony signing off. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff.